Hello, I am Tom Kakuza coming to you from my inventor's workshop in Cleveland, Ohio. I am the creator of and patent holder of U.S. Design Patent D609011 for a book carrying strap. I will be reviewing this product today. So the idea behind this product was to basically create a shoulder strap that you could attach to a book. I'm going to go through the process of how I came up with this idea, how the product is made, what the components are, and I'll even go through the assembly and manufacturing process at the end. I have a manufacturing ready prototype here that I'll be demonstrating today, and many other ideas and different prototypes that I've used over the years. So the idea for this product came about in the early 2000s when my wife and I took up the hobby of bird watching. So what you need if you're a bird watcher is you need a good pair of binoculars and you need a good field guide. So when you're out bird watching, you want to be able to spot the birds, and then especially if you're a beginning birder, you need to be able to identify the birds with something like this, a field guide that's full of all the pictures of the birds. So when we went out bird watching, we had our binoculars, and then you need your field guide, and you can see what the problem here is. I need two hands to hold the binoculars, and then I need two hands to look at the book, and I have no place to hold the book. So some people carry these in backpacks, some people carry these in giant side pockets on their pants, some people carry them in a shoulder bag or something like that, but it's very difficult to get this book out of a bag and look at the bird, picture, and then identify the species, and I have nowhere to set the book down when I'm out in the wild, so I'm stuck with needing an extra hand. So I came up with the idea to create a hands-free way of carrying the book that was easily accessible, and I did that by creating a harness that can attach a shoulder strap to any book. So now let me show you how this works. I basically take any book, I open it to the front and back cover. I take my harness and I loop the harness over the front and back of the book, slide it down to the spine, close the covers, and I have my shoulder strap attached to a book. And now I can wear this in a crossbody style. Now I'm hands-free. So I can identify the bird, I can identify the bird in the book. I also have an integrated bookmark here so that if I'm looking at sparrows, I can bookmark the sparrow page. If I'm looking at warblers, I can bookmark the warbler page, so that when I drop this down, I can immediately go back to the page that I was on, which is incredibly important because sometimes it takes a second look. Sometimes it takes a third look. So I flip back to my page. Here's my bookmark. That's not a field sparrow. I take another look. I bring this back up. I go back to my bookmark. Maybe it's a song sparrow, maybe not. This is the way people identify birds in the field. There is nothing like this product. When I've worn this out in the field for bird watching, I have people come up to me and say, "This is pure genius. How can I get one of these?" There's really nothing like it. So you can see this is perfectly suited for the purpose of carrying a field guide. So this is essentially the original design that I came up with. This is still very similar to the design that I'm using in today's manufacturing prototype. Let me just show you some other ideas and some other uses for the book. So in addition to that very functional version, my wife wanted a nicer looking version. So this is a fashion version of it. So what I've used here is a leather strap. I've used metal hardware. I've used leather tabs here. So now this looks a little bit more fashionable, and it's as functional as the other one. So this is the leather strap version. Very beautiful. Because this is essentially a fashion item. Anything that you're wearing on your body, you have to consider both as a practical item and as a fashion item. Then, beyond bird watching, my wife and I decided to go to Europe, and she was carrying this beautiful Vienna tour book, so I made this beautiful version for carrying the tour book with a little gold strap, leather tabs, and a little tassel on the end there. So this is another perfectly functional version of it in more of a fashion model. In addition to travel guides and field guides, you could also use this to carry a journal. Here's a beautiful leather bound journal. Here's a fashion version of one of these straps that I made. You could see someone wearing this beautiful leather bound version with a fashion strap. These all work exactly the same way. This works on any book. Then let's say these are all fairly stiff-backed books. I can do hardback books. It applies to paperback books. What about this book? This is a sketch pad. This does not even have a spine on it. And what I did here is instead of looping it through the front and back cover, I just looped the harness through, I don't know, 20 pages into the front and 20 pages into the back. And this basically works on a book with no spine. So now I can carry my sketch book. So if I'm out and I want to take a sketch or I want to make a drawing, I have my book right here with me. And in this design, I also focus on durability. This is my actual field guide that I use. I have had this strap on here for almost 10 years on this book. And this is in incredibly good shape. Now you will see that the book is starting to get some wear and tear. The strap is not. And when you put this harness around the book, if you put it through the front and back cover, you can get some tearing on here over a very long period of time. This is after 10 years of walking around with this in rainstorms, for example. There are two solutions. One, you can always just move the harness a few pages into the book and it essentially resets itself if it's starting to tear through the cover. Or in this case, I just put a piece of packing tape inside the front cover and the back cover, and that super reinforces that, so I don't expect any damage to that book in the future at all. And again, this is after more than 10 years of use of basically hanging a book by its spine. And if you count the number of steps that I take each day when I'm bird watching, it's about 10,000 steps. So this book has been going like this 10,000 times a day for over 10 years of use, and this is still in tremendously good shape. So now let me go through the features of this product in a little bit more detail, and we'll talk about how it's made. It essentially consists of three components: a shoulder strap, a harness, and a removable bookmark. First, let's talk about the shoulder strap. So there are three features of the shoulder strap that are essential to this product working properly. One is the strap needs to be extra long. So I have this set at about 60 inches or about 150 centimeters. The standard length of this strap for manufacturing purposes is recommended to be 72 inches long, 6 feet, or 183 centimeters. That's longer than any normal shoulder strap you would find on the market. The reason is because you need to wear this fairly low on your hip in this crossbody style. One, because you don't want it to collide with your binoculars. When your binoculars are here, you can't have the book way up here because they'll start to get twisted up among each other. So you want this down, but more importantly, when you use the book, you need to be able to pull it up and access it. And look how tight this is. So this is a 60-inch strap. I need this extra length to be able to open the book here comfortably. Otherwise, if the strap is super short, I don't have enough room to actually open the book. So you can see that long strap is very important. This is, as I said, set at 60 inches. I'm roughly 6 feet tall. If you think of a taller or larger person, this could go up to 72 inches, and it could go down to 35 or 36 inches if you cut that essentially in half, and you use the slide adjuster here to shorten the length of the strap. So the length is important, the length is adjustable, but it needs to be that long strap so you can wear it down here on the hip. That's really the way the product works. The second feature is that the strap material needs to be incredibly smooth, because when I'm out in the field, I'm doing this and this. I'm doing this and this. And you can see how that strap is sliding over my shoulder. In some of the early versions of this product, I used standard nylon webbing that has a little bit more coarse edges on it because it's cut on the edges, and that product tended to catch on my shirt. It frayed my jacket. So this material for the shoulder strap needs to be incredibly smooth material because of this motion that's required when you're using the book hundreds or more times per day. This isn't like carrying a purse where I'm just putting it on my shoulder and then I'm taking it off like this. I'm literally sliding this over my garment like this all day long. So smooth material is important. On this particular product and on the recommended manufacturer's prototype, I use this nylon webbing. This is actually climbing webbing, but this is called tubular webbing. So it doesn't have a cut edge or a seam on the sides. It's actually a tube that's folded. So it's very smooth on the front and back, and it's very smooth on the sides. It's that side edge that will start to tear your clothing. So this needs to be incredibly smooth material. So we need a long strap, we need a smooth strap. The third feature is I need these swivel hooks on the bottom here, because in some of the early prototypes, I just used clasp type connectors that didn't turn. And what happens is, you could see when you're using the book, it's very easy to flip the book like this, either on purpose or by accident. So you're basically, in many cases, rotating the book around like this. And if you don't have these swivel hooks on here, the cord, the shoulder strap will get all twisted up. So the swivel hooks are essential as well. So 3 key features: length, smooth surface, swivel hooks. That's the strap. The second component is the harness. Let me remove this from the book so we can see what this looks like. So here you can see how easy it is to remove that from the book. I just did. Now this harness has a bookmark integrated into it. The bookmark is removable by the end user. I'm just going to put this out of the picture for a minute and focus on the harness. So with the harness, we basically have a few parts here. We have these harness end tabs. These are the only parts of this product that are not off-the-shelf parts that you could buy. These actually need to be fabricated. And these are basically just shaped in this, somewhat, I guess, triangular or long diamond shape with a flat top with a standard D-ring on the top. So I basically make these out of synthetic leather or vinyl or Tolex, something like that. So it's a fairly durable material. It's a soft material because you don't want it to damage or mar the edges of your book. And it needs to be fashionable because when you're wearing any kind of product, you have to think about this as a fashion item as well. So I basically made this by folding over one piece of that imitation leather over the D-ring, and then I punched 2 holes in it. These holes are 1/8 inch holes or 3 centimeters. And then through the 2 holes on the 2 tab ends, I just loop this lace through here. So this used to be a shoelace, is what I used in the past. Now this is a really critically important material. This is a synthetic rubber material that has a slight elasticity to it. Now you cannot use standard fabric elastic tape or lace because it stretches too much and the book will bounce, and that bouncing is what tears the cover. What this synthetic rubber lace does is it just gives you enough give to keep a tight grip on the book with a small amount of give, so when you're doing that 10,000 times a day bouncing of the book, it limits it from cutting through the cover. So this is really an essential material. It also grips very tightly in this cord lock, which is the next component. So I have a sliding cord lock on here that allows me to adjust the length of this harness for very large books or very small books. So the working length of this is about 14 inches or 36 centimeters with the knot tied in the end there. This book is considered to be a pretty large book. This is a little bit over 9.5 inches, 25 or so centimeters long. And you can see here, I have plenty of room on this book. So I put the harness on the book, and now I slide the harness tab flush against the book. I slide that cord lock up there, and there's my book in the harness. So there's the harness, pretty basic product there. But that's really the unique feature of this. Nothing else like this exists in the market. Now, speaking of the harness, this is one of the interesting parts about this invention. I came out with this in the early 2000s. And since that time, you'll see that similar products have come out for water bottles. There's a special rubber harness that goes around the neck of a water bottle. It attaches to a shoulder strap. There are harnesses for iPhones and iPads that wrap around the corners of those mobile products and attach to a shoulder strap. There are harnesses for cameras. You can wear a camera down on your hip with a special harness for that. So this idea of attaching a shoulder strap to a specialized harness for a given type of product has really come a long way since the first time I came up with this idea, when there was really nothing on the market like that. So there are specialized harnesses and shoulder straps for many other products. This is the one for books. Very simple. And now lastly, I have the integrated bookmark. Now the bookmark is basically a piece of elastic. Now this is true elastic, like elastic thread that you would buy in a sewing shop, and you can see how stretchable that is. It just has an anchor on this end that goes through the same hole here in the end tab as one of the harness laces. And then this is basically a bookmark with a very specialized end on this. This is called a flat cord lock. Now let me show this a little bit closer to the camera so you can see what that looks like. That flat cord lock is essential so that that bookmark sits flat against the edge of the book. So let me talk a little bit about this bookmark. Let me put the harness back on the book so you can see it in action. So this bookmark was really a design challenge, because if I just put a standard bookmark in this book like this, when I hang this on my shoulder, my bookmark eventually falls out of the book. So using a standard bookmark is not possible. Then I just used a piece of cord, non-elastic cord, and basically laced that through the book like this with a slide lock on the bottom, but I had a round slide lock on here. And what happens is you're out in the field 10,000 times a day, this thing's bouncing up and down, and that straight cord with a round slide lock on the end would have eventually or occasionally fall out of the bottom of the book like this. So this design went through many, many iterations. So it's essentially this very elastic cord with this flat cord lock, as you can see, that sits right against the edge of the book, and that stays very securely in place while the book is bouncing in the field, because that cord lock sits flat against the pages. Now, in many ways, this shouldn't fall out because it's basically based on geometry. If the distance from here to here is, say, 10 inches, to actually fall out of the bottom of the book, you would need to have 11 inches or 12 inches. But what happens is the book opens like this while it's bouncing. So this elastic just gives you a little bit more security so that as the book is bouncing, the elastic cord pulls this up rather than letting it fall down. That's really a key feature. It took a long time to get this right, and that's an essential part of it. Then I just have a standard bell end. At the end of this, there's just a knot tied in there. The reason I'm using this bell end and a knot rather than a permanent clasp is because this bookmark needs to be removable by the user. Some people really need the bookmark. For example, when I'm bookmarking my sparrow pages in the field guide and I want to go back to that page, it's essential. Other books already have a bookmark in them, like this little leather journal already has a fancy bookmark in it right there, so I don't need another bookmark. And some people just don't like this bookmark in the book because it does dangle out of the edge. So if you're not really needing it, some people prefer to take it out. So you simply untie this knot on the end, pull off that bell end, remove your cord lock, and the bookmark simply slides out of the book. You put that in a plastic baggie, you keep that, and you can always attach it back to the book. So this is essential that this needs to be a user removable item, because it's really 50-50 with the people who've tested this product out. Some people love the bookmark, some people hate it. So we have to make this a removable part. Now let's talk about how to make one of these. There are basically three components: the shoulder strap, the harness, and the removable bookmark. Let's start with the shoulder strap. So the shoulder strap, really straightforward. This is a pretty basic shoulder strap like you'd find on any type of product. It's just long, it has a smooth type of material, and it has the swivel ends. So the way that we make this is we have our material 72 inches or 183 centimeters of that smooth corded material. We have one adjustable, it's called a tri-glide, that helps you adjust the length, and we have two swivel hooks that go on the end. This is pretty self-explanatory for anybody who's done anything like this. So let's start with the strap material. The first thing I have to do is cut it to length. You know, this comes in all different colors and things of that nature. We're going to stick with black. This is the basic configuration, not a fashion version. I need 72 inches or 183 centimeters of this. On my bench here, I have 36 inches marked, so I can easily measure 72. I'm going to cut this. Now, in a manufacturing environment, these ends may need to be sealed. Sometimes they'll use a hot melt on these to seal the ends. You want to make sure that that's not going to snag or catch on materials when these ends are sealed or stitched. So the first thing I want to do, and this is for final assembly, is I'm just going to arbitrarily mark one end of this as the head and one end of this as the tail. That'll help me in my final assembly. I'm just putting an H and a T sticker on these ends. So the first thing I want to do is put my swivel hook on my tail end. So I basically take the swivel hook, I put it through the tail end, I loop it over, and then you would stitch this together. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to staple this temporarily so we have a working model here. So I just stitched my end. I want to make sure that that's a nice smooth connection point there. Next, I need to put my slide adjuster on here so that I can adjust the length. So now I go to my head end, I put my slide adjuster threaded through here. Now this fabric is directional, meaning there's a colored stitching on one side. So there's actually a front and a back of this. So if there's a front and a back, you basically want to make sure that you have that figured out so you get the slide on properly so it's on the outside. So I have my slide in place. Next, I want to put my swivel hook on the head end. But I don't staple this one at the end. I bring this all the way up to the slide and I loop this through my slide adjuster. So I'm attaching the head end of my strap through the middle post of the slide adjuster. This should be stitched. I'm just stapling in the interest of time. And now I've made my adjustable strap. So I test this to make sure that it smoothly slides through that tri-glide or that slide adjuster. My strap is done. Very straightforward. Next, we have our harness end tab assembly. So these are the little triangular tabs that go on the end of the harness. I basically cut this shape out of, this is imitation leather that I use, or vinyl. Anything like that would work. You can use actual leather. Those are all fairly interchangeable materials for this purpose. I also made some of these out of neoprene. Different grades of neoprene have different breakaway strengths. I'm going to talk about the breakaway strength when we get back to the cord lace. This is not considered a breakaway component, so we could use leather in this case. So I basically cut these shapes out of the imitation leather. Then I need to attach a D-ring to each one of these. These are standard metal D-rings. I have plastic D-rings. I have these specialized little rings that go with those clips. You can use the triangular version of a D-ring as well. We're just going to go with the standard D-ring here. So basically I just thread this through the D-ring. I fold that over. I match up the sides, and then I glue these together, and I just use the standard type of leather glue for these. Then with that leather, you'll get this unfinished edge, so that edge needs to be colored in or finished in some cases. Then I need to punch 2 holes in these for the laces to go through in each one. So I use a 1/8 inch 3mm punch to punch 2 round holes right across that widest point, and I space them about 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch apart. That's really a judgment call as to how close you want to get to the edge. It depends on the strength of the material and the actual size of these. But if you use this standard specification that I have in the documentation, I would space those about 5/8 of an inch apart. So after punching the holes, I have my 2 harness end tab assemblies. You can see those there. Now if you're using leather, these need to be finished on the edge. They could be stitched. You just need to make sure that those finish up nicely. Now let's finish the harness assembly. So I have my 2 ends. I'm going to mark these similar to the other head and tail. I'm just arbitrarily marking these because they're both exactly the same. The next step is the lace. This is critically important. This is a synthetic rubber lace. This has a little bit of elasticity. I can stretch this about 15 to 20%. So if I laid out 10 inches of this, I can stretch it out to about 12 inches. This also has a breaking point of about 25 pounds of pressure. So this is essentially our safety breakaway component. All these other components are very heavy duty, and when you're putting any kind of product around your neck like this, you want to think about what's my breakaway component in case this gets hooked on something. You don't want to injure a person. So our breakaway component in this design is this harness lace, about 25 pounds of pressure. If you end up using a different type of material for this, for example, real leather or nylon or plastic or something that has a much higher breaking point, I would go back and look at what product do I want to make these out of to see if these could be the breakaway component, or you could put a breakaway clasp on the strap itself, or you could test the breakaway strength of the swivel hooks here. But some safety engineer should look at this to identify a reasonable breakaway component in the design. So now I'm going to thread this harness lace through my head end and then back through like this. So my head end goes through that like a shoelace, and then my dangling edges go on the tail. Because they're dangling, they look like a tail, hence the name. And now I'm going to thread these through the tail end. So I've threaded my lace through. You want to make sure that those are parallel to each other when these harness ends are in the upright position like that. Then I'm simply going to slide a cord lock on the end. I've used a number of different cord locks. This one is a barrel lock. I've used flat locks. I've used round locks. I don't have a strong preference on these, just something that matches the design motif of the rest of the product. So I basically slide this cord lock over both the laces through a single hole. You don't need a double hole cord lock here or anything like that. That's just extra complexity. Just slide both of these through. So I slide both ends through. I even up my ends. I just simply tie a knot here. There are alternatives to tying a knot in the end. You could put some type of cord cap on the end, but I think the knot actually looks kind of attractive. You see a lot of purses that look like that with that leather knotted at the end. So there's my harness assembly. That's it right there. So I have my cord lock, my lace, and my two harness ends. This lace is 28 inches long. That's 71 centimeters. So you get a working distance here with the knot and all that of a little bit over 12.5 inches. That's as big of a book as you'd want to carry. That's roughly the size of a textbook. You're not going to be carrying anything much larger than that on your hip. And then lastly, I have my removable bookmark here. I basically have a 14-inch or 36 centimeter piece of elastic cord. This is really just basic round elastic cord. I have a hinged screw cover. I'll hold that up to the camera here so you can see what that is. It's basically, you find those in a hardware store. I have my highly specialized flat cord lock. Very important that it's that size and it has that flat side on it, rectangular. And then I have just a bell end cap that goes on the end. So basically the way that this works is I slide my cord through my screw cover. I need to knot this on the end so that the cord doesn't pull through that hole. If you can find one with the right size hole, you can do that with one knot. I need to do 2 knots. Then I seal up that end. So basically I have an anchor on the end of this elastic right now. That's basically the bookmark. So if I'm manufacturing this in the factory where I'm putting the removable bookmark in the factory, I'm going to thread this through the head end so I have that marked H, and I just pick either one of the holes. It doesn't matter which one. I just share one of the holes that are already there, so now I have my bookmark threaded through my head end. Then I slide my specialized flat cord lock onto this end, move that up about 3 inches. Then I slide my end cap, my bell end cap on here. I tie a knot in the end. And I slide my bell end cap down. And in the prototype, I use a hinged cap. So basically this closes on the bottom. This one's an open bell end. That's the only thing different here in this product versus the prototype that I'm sending along. So now I have my harness assembly with the bookmark. The bookmark is dangling through the head end. Now, the reason that I marked the strap with the head and tail is because there's a certain configuration about how you want to wear this. So now when we put the whole thing together, I put the head end of my strap onto the head end of my harness. I put the tail end of the strap onto the tail end of my harness. There's my final assembly. Then I remove my temporary head and tail markers. This is done. Now just to demonstrate how this works and why I marked the head and tail, let me put this onto a book. Now you need to mark the head and tail because you want the bookmark to be on the head of the book. So basically there is a certain orientation of this. So when I open this up, this is my head end with the bookmark. I put that over the top of the book. When you think of the top and the bottom, if you're looking at the front of the book or the back, I slide my harness on there, move my harness end on, slide my barrel adapter up, Now I've got my shoulder strap adapted and I have my bookmark dangling. So now I need to open up my book, and if I hadn't put this on the head end, this bookmark would be on the bottom, which is a little bit weird. So you open it up, you specify where you want that in the book, you put it through there, and then you slide that cord lock up just till it's snug against there. You don't want it to be too tight, or else when you open the book, the bookmark will snap up in between the pages like that. So you don't want to do that. The end users get the hang of this immediately. So you want that bookmark just barely to go over the edge of the book like that. That's the perfect position. That's exactly what you want that to look like. Just a tiny amount of tension on that. There it is. And then the other reason I marked that head end is because when you wear the book, if you want the cover facing out, which is the typical way that people wear this, that head faces backwards. And you wouldn't think that's important, but look at the front here. My slide adjuster is in the back when I assemble this properly. So I don't have that slide adjuster getting caught on my buttons, on my pocket, on the front of my coat. So I want that slide adjuster to be in the back when the top of the book is facing back. So that slide adjuster is on the head end, the harness is on the head end, the bookmark is on the head end. That orientation really matters when you're assembling this. Now I did this from scratch in under 15 minutes. I think in a factory setting with some of these materials pre-cut and some automation, sewing machines, etc., you could do this in less than 5 minutes assembly, I believe, to put this together. So what we've just done here is made the standard configuration. If you're going to make one version of this, this is the one to make. Standard black webbing, black plastic parts, the black harness with the imitation leather tabs on the end, and the black bookmark. Keeps it very simple. Now if you wanted to move into some different varieties with this, the easiest thing to do is to use different colored webbing. Now this standard webbing comes in a variety of really interesting colors. I believe it comes in 10 different colors. So you could basically use the same harness, but offer this product with different color webbing so people could, personalize it or pick a different color if they prefer that. In addition to the different color webbing, let's go back and revisit some of the different styles that I showed earlier. So if you want to move away from the nylon webbing, this is the version, really pretty, that I made with leather straps. This is a thin leather strap. I've used metal hardware here. Basically the same harness, but this is a different strap that just dresses it up a little bit more. Then if you want to see an example of a real fashion version of this, this is the one that I made with this gold fabric strap. I used metal swivel hooks here, metal D-rings. I used real leather on the tabs here. I put a tassel on the end, and I used a white harness lace here with a little bit finished end on it there. So this just shows how it's the exact same design, and if you just use different materials, you can really dress this up a lot. And then here's a little bit different version where I used a fabric strap. I used plastic parts, but instead of the leather end tabs, I actually made matching end tabs here out of the same fabric that I made the strap out of. If you do this, you typically need to put grommets in there if you're going to use fabric for the tab. But essentially, this is the exact same design, just using different materials. So there's a lot of versatility here to the design. Now let's talk about some other accessories. So let's say you have this beautiful leather strap on this book, and that's a kind of uninteresting hardcover, and you're going to work on the subway and you don't want people to see what you're reading. You can buy these stretchable book covers. These sell for a couple dollars. You can basically take this book cover and put this over the front cover, stretch it over the back cover. Look at that. Now nobody knows what you're reading. That's really attractive. So you can go to work on the subway very discreetly. If you're reading a book, nobody knows what you're reading. Almost looks like you're carrying a purse. And you go like this, you start reading your purse. Look at that. That's great. That's a beautiful way to dress that up. You can also put protective, like waterproof covers on these as well. And look how the cord wraps up around there. You could stuff that in a book bag. You can stuff that in a bigger purse. So it's very compact. You don't need to take the strap off to store this. And this is interesting as well. Let's say you have a number of these. You can change out your shoulder straps. You can leave the harness on the book. I could store this on my bookshelf just like that. I don't even have to take that off. I could have a whole line of them here and say, what do I want to read today? Oh, I'm going to take Peterson's to work. Attach my shoulder strap to Peterson. There we go, out the door. I got Peterson on my hip right there. Look at that. This one's going to wait till tomorrow. Some people might want to use these book straps to carry their Bibles to church. A lot of people have their own Bibles that they take to church. You could put a shoulder strap on here. There are Bible carriers that people have that are basically leather-bound zip-up straps. This is just a much simpler way to carry it, and it's right on your hip here, so if you want to follow along in church, you got it right there. If you don't want to wear your Bible over your shoulder, I also came up with a handle attachment for this. So instead of using the shoulder strap, I basically have a handle with these swivel hooks that attaches on here so that you can essentially carry this with a handle on it instead of over the shoulder. So now let's talk about marketing and branding considerations. Now, when I came up with this idea, I did a lot of research. The best name that I came up with for this product is called the Go Book, capital G-O, capital B-O-O-K. Here's an example of what possible packaging could look like with that brand name. I have not done an exhaustive trademark search on this, but I have found a few obscure uses of that name Go Book. A full trademark research project would need to be done on that. Some other possible names for this, the real obvious one would be to call it the Book Strap. It's the only thing like it. That's probably what people would search on. You know, there are a number of other kind of obvious names like that, and I could give it some thought and come up with some other ideas if you are interested. In terms of branding and co-branding opportunities, obviously, I think the number one branding opportunity is for bird watchers or birders. There are a number of different birding organizations. The American Birding Association in the US has certain co-branded products. Birders Digest is a very popular circulation in the US. They have some branded products. And then you have the makers of the most popular field guides, which are generally Peterson's and Sibley's. I have both of those here. Here's the Sibley guide, here's the Peterson guide. If you could possibly look into co-branding with Sibley or Peterson's, that would be incredibly popular. Here's another Kaufman guide that's kind of the third tier guide that's out there. You could also connect with travel books. These are these eyewitness travel guides. You have the Frommer's guides, you have the Fodor's guides, you have Lonely Planet, you have Rick Steves, you have National Geographic. Again, in the birding or other field guides, like this one's not just a birding field guide, this is all nature field guide in the Midwest, but some nature field guides include National Geographic and things of that nature. Those are all the details I have here for today. All of this is documented in the documents that I sent along with this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My cell phone number is 248-797-5078. Call me anytime. Again, my name is Tom Kukuza. Thank you.